Hey everybody, I'm Josh at Weston, and I'm excited to bring to you this month's subscription box from Waterjet Knives. I love Waterjet Knives. One of the reasons I absolutely love this company and the service is because I can wake up in the morning with my crazy creative brain, get a cup of coffee out, sketch a knife, scan it, digitize it, and by the end of the week, I can have a fully finished knife. It's that easy. It's that cool. And I've been using these guys for a while, and I love their service, love their product, and so it's just an exciting thing for me to get to collab with them, pop out a knife that you all get to enjoy as well. You're gonna learn a couple different things. Not only are you gonna see how I make this knife, but you're gonna see how I take that exact pattern and I turn it into this with just a little forging. That's right, I blacksmith as well. Actually, that's my primary thing. I actually use this to help me put out batches of knives after I forged them and worked out the concepts. But along the way, I thought, this is really nice and really easy and convenient for me to have the same handle design, but be able to change the blade shape. So I'm gonna show you a little bit of that too. I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for watching.
It's pretty cool how these are the same Waterjet knife, but by forging just the blade, I can change them, right? I got a everyday carry and a brisket knife.
Here I am with my blank, and I'm working on a rough grit here, and what I'm doing is I'm just taking down the sides. See how there's some overlap on the belt on the left side where the bevel is? That allows for a nicer and smoother transition and a slightly radiused transition on that primary grind before it goes into secondary. But the transition between the handle and the bevel becomes really nice when you do that. Right here I'm rounding over some of the edges, just smoothing it out. Before I heat treat, I like to have a rounder, more round edges as opposed to squared up edges. It's just less stress that goes in from the corners. Here's another close-up of me grinding on the sides, doing a cleanup all around. I'm getting all my lines, or as many lines as I can, to run with the length of the blade. This is mostly just to prevent any sort of cracking or stress ripping through grind lines in the heat treat. And I'm also taking an opportunity here to chamfer some of the edges and corners. Nothing like getting sharp jimping in your thumb, especially when it's wet. You don't want that, so I take a slight little bit of the corner off there. And I'm grinding a little bit of a swage in the back of the blade. Not really a false edge, more of a swage, just taking a little weight off and making it prettier. Now I'm working on cleaning up some of the sides. Hand sanding, everyone's favorite. Everybody loves to hand sand. If you love to hand sand, raise your hands. Still looking for hands. We got any hands? Nope, no hands. Okay, back to a grinder. I got a little tiny wheel on there, and I'm just, instead of hand sanding, working that little wheel in there, right? You got to be real careful that you don't spend too much time in one spot. Oh yay, back to hand sanding. Love this. Still love it. Still love it. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. He's a liar. It's not his favorite. He hates this. All right, skip hand sanding. Back to buffing. Back to buffing. Let's do it. Let's do it. Doing a little test etch on that little guy. I was hoping to get a little auto homon, and yeah, you popped a little bit. Back to some more hand sanding. My life is hand sanding, and I try to do whatever I can to not have to hand sand. I'm working with some Yuma on this. It's made by a company, elforn.de, I think is a website. It's a really amazing product. They exist because they tried to make elephant tusk replacement, and in fact they did really well. They're the world's closest elephant tusk replacement material. But this stuff right here replicates snake skin, iguana skin, things like that. Really cool. Love this white stuff. Really beautiful, really elegant look. So my goal here is just trace out, get the pattern, get the holes where they need to be. I wanted to use a white handle and then at some point I'm going to etch and darken that blade so I've got a much darker blade and a whiter handle. You know, I run pretty lo-fi in my shop, so I'm just clamping stuff down in my drill press clamp, getting holes in. I like to go straight through the holes on the knife. I do pre-clean those holes before I shoot it through into the kit. I do all that before I even heat treat my knife and get the pins lined up so that they slide through, check that to the knife, cut around. I like to save as much of this material as possible because the excess makes for good little random knife projects or knife parts or rings, really beautiful rings. Yuma makes great rings, but just grinding around. I grind my handles on it so they're there. I'm getting it close. Notice I'm not going all the way. I'm just getting it really close. I'm moving real fast, but controlled. This is the way. Finer belts, cleaning that inside. You don't bother epoxying your knife handles on until you at least clean up that inside between the handle and the knife. Otherwise, you just won't be able to get that clean and smooth. Any other parts on this knife, I have to do the back side as well because that little triangle that comes out for whatever window smashing or skull smashing bit. So you gotta think things through. Order of operations is important. I put a little dye in my epoxy. A little dye in the epoxy helps to make it look intentional and purposeful and not like you have a glob of, weird epoxy color. I use painter's palette knives. I used to do a lot of oil painting, and so I use some of those tools in my shop as well to do my glue ups and fit ups. I'm sloppy. I'm real sloppy, and I don't like gloves for basically anything. Got it locked in the vise. That's all curing.
Throwing some pins. I know I'm just gonna grind this off later, but tapping them at this point helps to mush them down and into all of the spaces. It makes a nice tight fit up. No gaps. Be gentle. Be gentle. When you epoxy up, you get goo. Goo is no good. Sharpen up a brass rod. Your pin stock is fine. And you can scrape, usually. Let this cure overnight. Oftentimes I'll do this within like an hour or two of the glue up, so the epoxy isn't quite so hard. You just come in here and see how that's cleaned up right there. Easy peasy, Well, yeah, easy enough, I guess. A lot of people skip the step of doing the little cleanup details like this. They get these globs and weird stuff all over their knife that makes it obviously stand out as amateur hour. And I don't know, why would you go through all the work of doing this to leave epoxy globs all over when you could leave it as a nice, pretty knife? Yeah. Scrapey. Obviously you don't want to use steel or a razor blade, anything like that. Well, maybe it's not obvious. The reason is it'll mar your design up. This soft brass, however, does not mar up your design. Although it may require you to sharpen the brass rod a couple of times while you're doing this.
And yeah, almost there. Yeah, I'm gonna sharpen this again. All right. Okay, good enough. Now we gotta get that handle ground and polished up, and we can call this one a wrap. I should have ground this to a point before I put this handle on, but I was working kind of crazy and I forgot to think. So I'm gonna have to grind this right now while this is still there. Not bad. The point is just to have a massive point there, so you know you can jam it into something, like a temple, or a piece of glass if you need to break out of a car. I don't know. I've never had to use one, so I guess that's good. I like to just clean up the side a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Flat spot those pins. Yay, lovely. All right. Now I'm going to profile this whoop, 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 before I put in the contours. You want to make sure you square up, which I am. Lay that flat there. Now I can get this perfectly flat with the shape of the knife.
and we got to get into there. How are we gonna do that? Let's figure it out. I had to trade out my belt. It had a rip in the seam, and it was causing grinding issues. So I think it's not safe to grind with a belt that's fucked up. I did just want to stop and take a moment to talk about water jet knives, which I use fairly frequently. They make great stuff, you know, they're accurate, but I don't typically order off of their menu of knives that they already have because I'm a designer. I come up with my own stuff, including this knife, which is cool. And when you think about this and you create the knife that you want to make in that design, think of it based off of the attachments and the equipment that you have available. It doesn't do you a whole lot of good to design something that you can't actually finish out in the way that you have designed it. So for instance, I have a flat platen with these size wheels, and I have a small wheel attachment with 3 different size wheels on there. And I don't, off the top of my head, remember what all 3 of those are, but I have a list that I use for when I'm in my program making this. I can just set those radiuses to where if I have a, you know, finger groove that's going to be in here, I know that I have a wheel, and it's, that wheel's over here. I have a wheel that gets in there and will clean that up. This big wheel over here won't do it. This little one's a little too tiny, but this one's perfect. Once you put a belt on there, you can get just a nice little run in there. So it's important to do that, because if you only have a 2-inch wheel, there's no point in putting this in there, because you're not going to be able to get that clean the way you want to when you get this knife on a grinder. You know, when you do something like this, can you get into that radius? What does this match up with? Do you have something there that will do that? This slope that goes up to your thumb, yes, you can use this tiny little thing, but if you have a slightly bigger one like the one back there, or the ones on your flat platen, you get a really nice slope there, and you get a really nice finish that's just naturally easy because it matches your equipment. So I encourage you to utilize the service that they have in a way that will allow you to not be frustrated. That's the whole point of WaterJet. Quickly get stuff out that maybe you can make in your shop, but what, you know, if it takes you 40 hours to just get the shape of a knife out, maybe you get it WaterJet, you know, and think about it and make sure that whatever your design is able to be produced on the equipment that you own. I'm gonna set where I want the inside line to be. And then the back side is going to be thicker. So I'm just gonna run a line up, thicker, and basically I'm gonna grind till the Sharpie is no longer visible there, which is going to create a contour like that. Yeah. All right, oh, I got a little mistake there when I was cleaning those up. I'll have to amend that in the design. Sorry about the snuffles. It's cold. It's 37 degrees here in Charleston, which is kind of rare for this time of year. Well, my neighbor's kids are going crazy over there. All right, that's good enough for me. Let's grind this shit. Just so you know, I usually do wear a respirator, but mine broke recently, and I have a new one on order, but it won't be here until tomorrow. So I'm gonna eat some cancer today, but don't eat cancer. This particular knife has given me shit the whole way. The other one is going really well, but every single step, every part of this process, I have messed something up. Sometimes it's how it goes, you know? This is why lately I actually stopped grinding handles when they're glued to the knife because of this problem. You have to work around not hitting the blade, which means you can't get into areas the right way. And what I've done here is I've taken off too much right at this juncture, so now I've ground right to almost where the metal meets, and I wanted that spacer. So what I should have done is ground these off of the knife and then affix them, and I was in a bit of a hurry, so I'm just trying to cut a couple corners, and I regret it. I gotta keep this real light because of how thin I've gone on this side. So I'm just jumping straight to a 400 grit piece of sandpaper. And this is from, I think it was at a 180 flexible belt. That's what I had on. Oh no, actually it was a 220. So it's not a crazy step up to go from 220 to 400 for a handle. I just want to, a couple things I want to do. Want to make sure I have a nice straight line down the center of this handle piece, and nice flat facets with an even, smooth grain. Remember, there's a couple areas I need to stay off of because I made mistakes on the grinder. This one right here, and I'm doing the worst one first, right? I'm doing the thinnest spot first. That way I can match the other side. Just take it easy, check as you go. Make sure you're getting the finish that you want. I'm not gonna film all of this because it's gonna take me a long time, and it's boring, so see you in a bit. Just ran that on a Trizac belt, a fine one. I know their numbers are a little odd, so, and I don't remember which one. Also, I need to mount this to a stick. Would be a lot better. And I'm kind of in between strops right now, so I'm just using some scrap leather I had. Nice thing is you can feel which side needs a little bit more by which one's dragging the most. And then you can concentrate on that. Ooh. You hear how much finer the sound is on that? It's not tearing as much, it's cutting more. And the sharper the knife is, the quieter the paper will sound when you actually go to cut it. I really like to use these U-line catalogs because the paper is just perfect. It's so light and delicate, and if you can cut this paper real easy with your knife, then you've got a sharp knife. You don't have to shave yourself or do these other crazy tests. That one is good enough. So there we go. Beautiful knife, some nice Yuma scales. 1095 water jet knife from Water Jet Knives. Thanks for watching.